and gentlemen, welcome to the House of Kayfabe. Brian Resner here with Stephen Barker and Adam Harris, and we are talking about the Bloodline. You know, it's interesting. The Bloodline has existed pretty much right alongside this podcast. I remember actually Steve and I were a part of another podcast at one time, and we were talking about this right before we launched the House of Kayfabe. And the conversation at that time went like, man, when are they just going to let Roman Reigns go heel? If he was a heel, this would all be working. Why aren't they doing that? And then here we are, almost 3 years. Well, actually 3 years from then, but almost 3 years from when we started this podcast. And we're talking about how the Bloodline just might be the greatest storyline in WWE history. This is kind of a monumental part of storytelling. Would you not agree, Stephen Barker?
I can't believe it. Like, we were talking about it before we went live today. It's almost like dude, wrestling fans do have great selective memories. Can we all remember succotash, cheesy babyface Roman Reigns feuding with his former colleagues in the Shield? And we were rejecting it. You know, the fans were going in to business for themselves, and Vince McMahon kept hammering and hammering and hammering. And I remember talking about like the beginning of him beating up Jay, kind of how this all started, right? And we were so perplexed. Who would have thought that succotash Roman, 3 years now, people are talking about this as an Emmy award-winning piece of television, which would make it historical.
You know, before we go too far into this, we really should listen back to the way we talked about this when it first got started and how perplexed we were at what was even going on. Let's take a listen.
I love this.
Is 2 words, Roman Reigns. And I don't give a shit what anyone says about Roman Reigns. Right now, this story with the Bloodline is fire.
Kinda, sorta. And tonight was what really got me not thinking that, because I was all in on that last one of the last pay-per-view. That match was great until it turned into a 2-man off-Broadway show and they were just fucking talking to each other in the ring. That match was pretty great. Tonight, here's what I'm like, who do they think that Roman Reigns, the micromanager, is big time? Do they think that Roman Reigns, the anal retentive Karen, is big time? But I'm upset because you did a thing that I didn't like you. What fucking writer's dad didn't tell them they loved him enough for them to have to write a bunch of shit where I hate you, I love you, Oos? What? They're killing it. They're killing that fucking.
It would have been better, in my opinion, if Roman had just sent Paul to say, cut the interview. Roman didn't authorize it. Cut the interview. And that would have been it.
You're right. That would have been better.
They had to go back and talk about it for 5 minutes.
Oh, that's it. You're absolutely right. If they'd have just go to black. No, we don't need to know why. It's just, dude, it's some weird, incestuous sub-dom shit that they're doing. Somebody is writing in the writer's room, has watched, or who have just finished watching 50 Shades of Grey and was let's do that with Roman Reigns and Uso. That's what it feels like.
Man,
you can't do a thing then let's
Brian, I agree with you. How long have I been saying on this show and others going back a long time that there needed to be a Samoan faction in WWE?
Yeah, this is it. This is the faction you're getting, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. The things that Stephen Barker is saying are true, and that goes along with every single story in the WWE. Every single story in the WWE is snake bit by the fact they have writers that are writing shit that no one would ever say.
And see, my problem is you would think that Paul Heyman would put the kibosh on that because he's the only genius that's up there right now.
He's not in charge. He's not in charge anymore.
I know.
He's just happy to have a job at this point. And
exactly.
If it's being the consigliere to the Samoan dynasty, I think he's happy to have that job. And
I think he also knows
Samoan faction. I'd add a few more Samoans to it. I'd put Nia Jax's fat ass in that Samoan faction and just go ahead and add her and Tamina to it as well. And Tamina's Fijian. She ain't even Samoan. But anyway, I'd put a whole Islander type faction together, with Jimmy Hurt and just let it run. But at least this feels organic. And I think that's Resner's point. Roman, as the head of the table, tribal chief, at least feels organic, and you don't feel like you're getting Roman as a heel just shoved down our throats.
Man, it's the best thing that's going on SmackDown.
So as you can see, we were not sure exactly where this was going to go, and if you would have put it on me to say, hey, was it going where it is now? I don't think that I would have predicted the success that we were going to see from one cousin beat the shit out of another cousin.
It made no sense. I don't think any of us were really that comfortable with it when it was going on at the time. Like, it felt weird and awkward, and it went way further than I think any of us was expecting it to. That's for sure.
Well, I know that every single week I liked it more. It grew with me and obviously grew with the WWE universe, because we're not the only ones that think that the Bloodline just might be the greatest story ever told. And it's hard for me to even say that because, I went through the Mega Powers. I went through a lot of different storylines that were pretty remarkable.
I can't think of a single one and the Mega Powers was the first one that came to my mind.
Mine too.
That's what was looked at before. And I wasn't even watching at that point, Brian. You were probably just a little older than I was. And I look at that back in retrospect as something I didn't get to watch, but I was able to rent WrestleMania 5 on DVD and stuff.
How old are you, Adam?
I'm 42 years old. I started watching wrestling in 1991, so 30 some years.
So surprise, surprise, I am 4D. So you are actually older than me.
Oh, so there's no way you could have possibly watched unless you started watching earlier, I guess.
I started watching around 5 years old, right around the same time I started school. So, but that doesn't mean I didn't watch videos, and that's really where a lot of that came from for me.
DX isn't, even the greatest characters, like there's not that one Rock storyline. Like there's lots of the Rock versus Hogan is a great match. The ECW and the WCW thing, like that was kind of looked at as one of the poorestly executed feuds and storylines of all time. I think it's Mega Powers and then the Bloodline, and it's not even close. Like, I feel like the Bloodline is the best thing wrestling has done ever, and part of it is because none of us got it at the beginning.
We would be remiss to not mention Stone Cold versus Mr. McMahon.
Well, there you go.
Which I think somebody else would maybe say that. But, and I lived through that. God damn, that was my Vietnam. I was through that. I actually was watching the Mega Powers. I was right around when I grew up, where I grew up, we got cable. And I finally got to watch WWF. And I specifically remember seeing oh crap! When Hulk Hogan picked up Miss Elizabeth and took her back, and even then I was thinking, "Oh, we know the Macho Man is not going to be happy. It's not going to be cool with this." I think that emotionally, the Bloodline hits like that, but I don't think anything in the Stone Cold Vince McMahon that was just a lot of just like violence directed at your employer, and that was a lot of people living vicariously. But it wasn't the same emotions that we have went on. Jesus
and also
Christ,
a little more obvious too, right? Like a little more apparent, like you just said, Hulk carrying Macho Man's valet to the back. Like, ooh, that's a big deal. And same with Austin and McMahon. I mean, that was a long storyline, but it wasn't anything that anybody was like really surprised by, you know.
Right.
This, I feel like we all keep being surprised at how cool and engaging and captivating the Bloodline story has been.
Brian, what do you think about this? Do you think that at that time when Roman started, basically gang beating in his cousins, the Usos, I feel, were stale. And I thought, like, why are we doing Usos in a main event situation? What do you think about that?
Well, see, I believe that when we seen the Usos go heel, it was before the Bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they started the Uso penitentiary stuff, I feel as if they reinvented themselves right then. And that's when it started to make sense they were going to gravitate toward their cousin. I remember even calling that out, many, 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 many months before it actually started happening, because it just made sense for if Roman was going to go heel and the Usos were doing the Uso penitentiary thing, they could just kind of wrap the whole thing together. So it kind of writes itself if you allow it. The problem is WWE never allows anything to write itself. And that's why we were dealing with what you were talking about earlier. You know, Roman Reigns always had it. I mean, he comes from a bloodline, a serious bloodline, not a storyline, but a bloodline of wrestling royalty. He looks like $1 million. He had the Jason Momoa look before Jason Momoa.
Way before anybody knew who that was.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, Jason Momoa was still a scrawny kid on that space show when Roman Reigns was looking like $1 million. And if you actually think back to when Roman Reigns was on NXT, that was the tribal chief. That was the character that we are now getting times 10 because he's more experienced. He's been through it all. And he's also had, this opportunity to sit at the learning tree with Paul Heyman and really develop himself as a character. We're seeing the very best of something that we could have seen the very best of a long time ago. But instead, Vince McMahon was like, no, let's give him the gimmick for T-shirts for fat kids, the big dog. That's what they,
Ouch.
you remember seeing the big dog shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
It was always,
biggest
the
dog,
three
biggest
to
yard.
3 to 6X T-shirts, big dog T-shirts were everywhere. And I'm not hating on you big guys. I'm a 4X, 3X guy, actually 3X now. I've been fasting, but I'm an XL kind of guy as well. But those big dog shirts are not what you want to base your top talent off of. And that big dog angle was really, really poorly executed and just all around, like you said, corny, suffering succotash. That's where we were. And and this is, I hope this doesn't get us canceled. It took cancer to get Roman over with the fans at one time.
True.
At one time it took cancer to save Roman Reigns from the sea of booze he was receiving. And it wasn't the kind of booze you want. It was the kind of booze that you're not expecting. So you're pumping this guy as the next big thing. The crowd is just absolutely hating it. And the guy has to come down with cancer before they'll let him get over.
Well, and I want to jump in to say, like, this was the first time we saw the real Roman Reigns or the real Joe or whatever, was when he had to come out and relinquish the title and actually spoke the truth, And if you remember, he said, I'm not Roman Reigns, I'm actually Joe. And it was powerful. And I think we all actually got a glimpse of what was going to happen, is that, we can connect with this guy. And unfortunately or fortunately, it was because of the cancer. And then... And there's a couple of the points, I want to look at, hopefully with you guys, is one of the points was when he joined up with Heyman and then won that title at Payback in 2020. The first thing Heyman said was, you fans didn't check. You guys didn't care about Roman while he was off on sabbatical, the same way you didn't care about me when I was off of WWE television. And that's why he said that Roman had turned on the fans, was that he had never gotten the respect he deserved. He'd been working so hard.
Great storyline.
He came back. Exactly. And that was the launch point, to a lot of what we're still talking about today.
Well, you know what I just realized while we're sitting here talking? I believe that Roman Reigns may be one of the most successful cancer survivors of all time.
Lance Armstrong, him and Lance Armstrong.
Him and yeah.
Stay tuned for that top 100 video.
Yeah,
I mean, because think about that. Take yourself back to when Roman Reigns came out, told the world that he had cancer, and relinquished the title. No one watching that thought we were ever going to see Roman Reigns again.
It was possible we wouldn't. Yeah,
because it was leukemia.
I mean,
it wasn't like skin cancer or something.
It wasn't just possible. It was a done deal in my head. That was it. You know, yeah, he says he's going to return. I really hope the best for the guy. We'll never see him in the ring again. That was a done deal for me. I thought that it was over. And I'm sure many people shared that same sentiment when they seen what we witnessed, which was a real big shocker. I'll always remember where I was when Roman Reigns told the world he had cancer. And to think that not only did he beat cancer, he came back to the sport he loved and did better than he'd ever done before.
Revolutionized it. Yeah. Fucking went straight to the, well, not straight, but went to the top.
Yeah. I mean, he went from a point where they're pushing him to get cheers. He's getting a sea of boos. Now he gets a sea of boos, and the boos that are behind that is admiration. That admiration is behind those boos. Those are the boos that you want. And he's also getting cheered more than he's ever been cheered before. And people are recognizing him as the tribal chief.
We've all seen this live, right, at TV tapings. Me and Adam saw it at a SmackDown taping. Brian, I'm pretty sure you have seen it.
I've seen it about 4 times. Man, it's unbelievable.
If Steve New was here, he would understand where I'm coming from. It's more than a Road Warrior pop. It's something else. We haven't seen the kind of crap, because it's obviously we hate you because you're a dastardly heel, but we respect the fuck out of you. It's like Hogan was like pure love, right? Vitamins and saying your prayers. Stone Cold was all just love because we want to live vicariously, because we want to stick it to the man. But there's something different when it hits different, as the kids say, when Roman Reigns comes out.
Can I say that it's like the perfect combo, exactly what you just said? And like we all associate Hulk Hogan so much with Real American, right? Like that's part of the electricity in the room. And so much so that they've gone back on the network and like put that into things that it was never in, like at WrestleMania 1, it's
no
like he
shit.
comes out to Real American. Yeah, it's awful. It's horrible.
Do you know what he came out to?
Clearly faked.
Do you know what he came out to? I know this.
Probably Eye of the Tiger.
Actually, Land of 1,000 Dances from the Pro Wrestling album.
Oh,
that was his come in.
LPs.
Yeah, they were selling LPs. That's what he came into.
It was the perfect thing. And I think we all look back on that. And I was watching the Bloodline thing today, and it was like there was a note on there. I think it was April of 21. The new music debuts. Because before that, it was a dun-dun.
The Shield. He got the Shield music.
Yeah. The music is part of what just electrifies that arena. And I've seen it twice, once with you and also at the Raw before Mania that Matt Mullins and I went to. And, it is something different. And I think it's that perfect combination, because the music is such a good part of it, and the, it's this whole choreographed masterpiece of camera shots and widening and him reaching for the title from Heyman, it's become this whole thing in the fireworks. And I think it's the perfect combination, just like Hogan was back in the day.
I like what you talked about there about the presentation of it. And I know that we've heard even the God Emperor make fun of how long that entrance is, but it's such a slow burn, man. As someone who performs on stage regularly, it is so easy to get in front of a crowd and just want to go Ultimate Warrior.
100%,
for him to,
right?
Just 1,000 miles an hour, match the crowd's intensity. But that slow burn, I'm unaffected because I'm above what you all are about. To do that slow enter, man, it's perfect. Is Roman Reigns going to end up on a fucking Mount Rushmore, Brian Resner?
It's very possible. You guys were talking about live events. I was lucky enough to be at SmackDown, the New Year's edition of SmackDown, at the beginning of the year.
23.
That's when the Usos had the tag titles. Roman had the belts. And it was a big presentation, probably the biggest presentation of the Bloodline, because they were all decked out in championship material. And when they come out and they're putting the number ones up, it's just a feeling that that very rarely gets duplicated. You don't see the type of energy the crowd puts into it, whether they're booing or they're cheering. They're giving their absolute all because they're emotionally invested.
And again, with Roman, it's that perfect hand gesture. You know, I mean, it's there's only been a few of them. You know what I mean? Like, and you can do it and still not like it. You know what I mean? You can acknowledge him and still boo or still not be about it, but you can still do that. And if you don't want to, you're still booing, or you know, it's an amazing thing, you know. And the acknowledge me thing has gone, you know, beyond what any
being
of us
a
thought.
huge Paul Heyman fan, you can see Paul Heyman's influence all over this storyline.
Yeah,
it really just shows what an incredible talent Paul Heyman is, and not to, you know, not to give him all the credit, because you know everybody involved has their part. You know,
For
Jey Uso came up from what people would perceive as the Marty Jannetty of the Usos.
Ow.
Well, I mean, at one time, you're going to tell me that everybody didn't think Jimmy was going to be the breakout star for years, up until he started getting a DUI weekly. He was supposed to be the one. He was going to be the one, and then Jay, you know, in that time off that Jimmy had while he was dealing with his alcoholism, Jay was able to step up and really show that he is main event Jey Uso, that he belongs. And, you know, when I think about Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso at SummerSlam, I get excited. I would not have gotten excited. I mean, you just heard what we said about it, you know, at one time. But now Jay has put himself in a position where he's worth his salt. You could see this man being in the main event.
Think about
I can't
this
wait till we see the feud between the brothers. That's coming next.
Oh man, for real. Yeah, for real. Totally agree on that. And because I was watching some of this Bloodline stuff, you know, this match they're having at SummerSlam this year is going to be at least the third main event pay-per-view between these guys, and they're almost 2 years apart.
No shit.
You know, there was those initial matches where Jay won a chance to challenge. And that's when Roman started to be like, you will acknowledge me and all of this, which leads me to something I wanted to bring up with you guys. And it can't be understated how closely the pandemic ties into this. And because I think some of the great storytelling was done backstage, because it was as easy, if not easier, to do than any of the in-ring stuff without an audience. You know what I mean? It was a more controlled environment. We got Paul Heyman at his best. We were able to tell these stories and control the how the story was told backstage. And I think they did it and leaned on the expertise of the Paul Heymans of the world, because they needed it to be more soap opera than in-ring action at the time.
I'll piggyback on that. If you all remember all of those empty arena matches, that's really that's when Roman started basically doing full-on monologues during the match, and you know, preaching to Jimmy or Jay.
That's another great point.
And we would have never heard that.
We emphasized that stuff. Yeah, because it was possible. We emphasized all that stuff. Acknowledge me.
Yeah. It was, we'd never seen it before. It could only ever happen. It may be the only good thing that ever happened out of the pandemic, wrestling wise, is we got to hear.
I hate saying anything is good out of the pandemic. I was thinking about that literally before we jumped on, but I feel like the Bloodline might not have even happened the way it happened if it weren't for the pandemic era.
That's interesting.
You know, one of the reasons why I say that Paul Heyman's fingerprints are all over this storyline is because of the intricate little details. All the intricate little details and the wording and the phrases used, the island of relevancy. That is straight out of the brain of Paul Heyman. These are all things that, and it makes you wonder, like, why is it Paul Heyman writing everything?
Mm-hmm.
Why hasn't Paul Heyman been writing everything so volatile
over the years? Yeah. If you haven't listened, man, and maybe you have, Brian, I don't remember if we've talked about it, but there's like a 2-hour interview with Paul Heyman on the Rick Rubin podcast.
This is
I
great.
100% seen it. It is, or
He-
heard it. It's
It's
great.
brilliant. Yeah. And because Paul talks so slowly and defiantly, it's 2.5 hours long. But he talks about Roman dropping the wise man tag on him. Like that was completely organic. He felt it. He didn't say to Paul, I'm going to call you this. He said, we're going to call, and it just came naturally, and called him the wise man, and it's the most perfect moniker of all. It's way better than advocate or special counsel.
Mm-hmm.
You're the
I
wise
loved when he
man.
was talking about Brock and how visually scary Brock is. When he went into detail about that really made the whole podcast for me.
Heyman is brilliant. Heyman is brilliant. And what you said is true. And also, like, when he threw the belt into the ring between Brock and Roman, further questioning us, like, whose side is he on?
Man, one of the best moments, and man, you know,
Right.
we got to talk about some of Roman's adversaries through all of this, because I think we've got two elephants in the room that we got to talk about. One, we'll do him first. Brock Lesnar gives so much of this fucking business. I know the Smarks are not big on him, and they're all absolutely wrong. Brock Lesnar is an architect of this motherfucker, because if Brock Lesnar don't want to lose to you, Brock Lesnar ain't fucking losing to you. And he lost in some spectacular fashions and
Definitely.
made Roman Reigns. Like, dude, he brought a goddamn tractor to the fucking ring to try to take down the tribal chief, right? So I think that, like, Roman Reigns is huge in making of Roman Brock Lesnar is huge in making of Roman Reigns. And Brian, I want you to go with this, and he's so easy to disparage because he's had so many terrible Katie Vick, everybody. But look, this is Vince McMahon's. He's fucking 1,000 years old. Apparently, he does not have anything to do with the creative day to day, as he says. But Brian Lesnar, this is Vince McMahon's last great creation. He created Hulk Hogan. He created Stone Cold Steve Austin. He created The Rock. He created John Cena. And Vince McMahon, he kept pushing us. He kept pushing us. We rejected it. But in the end, and I'll do this real quick, and I'll give it to you. 8-9 years ago, when the CM Punk went on the famous Colt Cabana podcast, he talked about, even then, when he was in that feud with the Shield, he said specifically, Vince McMahon went to him and said, every chance you get to shine Roman, you shine Roman. You acquiesce to him at every chance because he's the next guy. And that was almost a decade ago. And we were bitching at Vince McMahon. You know, we were going into business for ourselves and the crowd, and he was right.
You know, you said I want you to go with me on this. And I can't necessarily go with you on this, and this is why. Because first of all, like I was saying earlier, if you can't look at Roman fucking Reigns and tell yourself and anyone who will listen that he's the next guy 10 years ago, then you're blind. There's no way that Roman Reigns is not the next guy. It's about how you do it. And he did it poorly for years.
He did.
So really, when it comes down to it, he was given the golden goose. He just couldn't make it comfortable enough to lay eggs.
It had to build to that, though, also, right? Like, you
I
can't
don't
just come
believe-
right out. You don't think so, I'm sure, but it's
I
like you
don't
can't just
think
jump right
so.
on, like, oh, the wild Samoans or whatever. You can't
I'm
just
saying
be like
the Shield,
that.
The Shield was good momentum. You want to separate them. You want to put Roman in a position to where he's going to get over, and you went the wrong direction every single time until it just kind of happened for you. So I can't give him full credit. Sure, I'll give him credit for being able to look at Roman Reigns and tell he's going to be a fucking star. congratulations.
Yeah, but
You
man, it isn't
and
like he
every other
didn't.
person in the world. Can
Yeah, but
say
you could
that.
have said that about fucking Lex Luger. Look at him. How is he not going to be the next fucking Hulk Hogan? And he
And
didn't
Vince
get it
thought
done.
the same thing. Yeah.
And Vince thought the
Well,
same
I
thing.
tell you what.
Dude.
I tell you what, I think he could have made Lex Luger the next Hulk Hogan if he'd have done that right too. But that's another episode. The point is, he failed at Roman Reigns so many times, and then it just was obvious at the end. This is what you do to make this work. You've tried everything else, literally everything else you could try. You've already tried. Now everybody said you need to turn this guy heel. Everyone was giving him this information. He was declining that. And then all of a sudden, it's the only thing left to try. And it works.
Let me
Holy
say
shit.
this.
Who would have thought the Silver Spoon Royal Bloodline kid will be a great heel? Anybody?
But he isn't just a heel. He is a transcendent talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've had, dude.
All the greatest heels are.
But we've had tons of great ones, right? We've had so many great ones. We've had the great one, but there's something
Who happens to be directly related to who you're talking about.
right. But it wasn't that he
We haven't
just
even
turned
got there yet.
Yeah, no shit. I mean, we're going to. It isn't just that he just went heel. He created something that we've never seen. That again, I'm going to go back to it. That's so great that fucking movie critics who have, or television critics who have for years shit on pro wrestling, are saying that this could win an Emmy, like The West Wing and The fucking Wire. Like that's where we're at. Did you think that, like, yeah, we knew that he was eventually going to have to go heel? He's not John
That's
Cena.
dangerous territory because none of these guys are SAG-AFTRA.
That's true. I wonder if the writers are on strike in the WWE.
Oh, I promise you they're not.
I bet you there's no union in fucking
Oh, I was
Stanford.
going to say, if they did go on strike, I'm sure there would just be a lot of open jobs really quickly, and then they would be filled, and those guys would probably
Like guys
get
like
canned
us.
before the end of the week and filled again. So they
true.
know better than to go on strike.
That's true.
So,
That's
No
true.
doubt. No doubt.
So, talking about this history, it's so hard because we're trying to put 3 years of a angle in a 30-minute, hopefully 30-minute video. Did anyone see Sami Zayn becoming
Oh my God.
not just a member of the Bloodline? They were basically for a couple weeks or a few months like a babyface comedy act that we loved. We
Yes.
haven't even talked about getting Uzi, baby.
Oh,
You know,
Tremendous
what's interesting,
television.
there is a very, very close line between the rise of Daniel Bryan and the rise of Sami Zayn. I think that got real scary for the WWE at the end. I feel like that's part of the reason why they've rushed a lot of this stuff, because really you could have got a little bit more time out of the Usos and Roman being together. You could have got a little bit more time out of a lot of different aspects to this angle, but they kind of rushed it along because I think that Sammy was getting too big too quick, and they were like, "Oh, we don't want to put the title on Sammy. Let's cool this off with some tag titles
You
really
think so?
quick."
You think
no,
that they
I
were?
believe
I think
so.
no, I think it's perfect. But I mean, I see what you're saying, but no, I don't think Sammy was
Well,
ever going to win the world title.
I don't think he was either, and that's why they put those titles on him so they could get the fans off of thinking
For
that
sure.
he might. Because
Yeah,
the
for
last
sure.
thing they want is if you remember, Roman was a victim of Daniel Bryan's organic popularity. If you remember, he won that Royal Rumble. You remember the only Royal Rumble where Rey Mysterio got booed because he wasn't Daniel Bryan?
And they brought The Rock out to raise his arm, and people still didn't care.
He
And
got
they
booed.
Still booed him. They booed him out of the building because
God.
he wasn't Daniel Bryan.
And that's
That's
where
a
you
good
go back
point.
to the greatest
So when
transformation
Sammy-
for a cancer survivor. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
to go from before that to after to where we are now, man. What
That's
a
a good
transformation.
point.
Not only did he survive cancer, but he survived his own bad booking. And Daniel
Lots of it.
Bryan, of course, had a lot to do with that initial hatred for him after the Royal Rumble victory. And when they seen Sami Zayn getting that same type of organic popularity, they were like, holy shit, get that guy away from the Golden Goose right now. Put him on the tag titles, send him somewhere else, put him on a whole different show, put him on Raw. Let's separate him from this stuff right now because he is a byproduct that we do not want.
But we also need to add Daniel to the list of people, like Barker said, like Brock Lesnar, who helped to get Roman over, because on his way to AEW, man, Daniel Bryan did the right thing. Daniel Bryan stepped up. Every mark of us all thought he's got a chance at this, and in a real shoot fight might still win. But he did the right thing.
Daniel Bryan and Edge get stacked up and pinned.
Man, that one match that I can't remember where it was or when it was, but the one where the thing that I remember the most about it is Daniel Bryan is fucking toying with Roman Reigns for the first 15 and doing a lot of like that
showing off
British style, like grappling that me and Derek Jones love so much.
Great.
And he was toying. And you know how great Daniel Bryan is? It was believable. Like, we know that Daniel Bryan is a shoot wrestler and trains, real wrestling in real life. And he made it fucking believable. Now, he still did the job, but he still made it look viable that he may beat the big dog at that time. So many people, dude, Drew McIntyre. Think about that match at the Clash at the Castle, dude. And we've talked a lot about the angles and the storylines of it. Let's not forget that Roman Reigns, I've said this on this channel before, has mastered AEW. You all are all fucking wrong. He has mastered the art of the main event match. This motherfucker has done what Ric Flair did 30 years ago. He has made us all believe that Drew McIntyre was going to win the championship on the island of his birth, right? We thought that, of course, Brock Lesnar is going to get the belt back. It's Brock Lesnar. He always gets it back. He's had can't think of a bad match he's had in the last 3 or 4 years.
And thankfully he saved us from a lot of things, and I was going back to in 2020 when he came back, it was Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman.
Ugh.
None of us were happy with that.
Ugh.
None of us were happy with that. And I wanted to say another thing about one of the previous podcasts I listened to on the House of Kayfabe, where we were discussing the fact that Edge needed to beat Roman.
Oh,
and so when you want to look at it on that, he had made the comeback. It got cut off by the pandemic. He was back again. And this is his last shot. And so when you want to talk about people who did business, Edge probably gave up one last run in the name of Roman's long record-breaking title reign.
I forgot about
What
that.
A sacrifice.
Yep.
What a sacrifice.
And we were all about Edge when he came back, man.
Yeah, I was.
We all said he looks better than he's ever looked before.
And he did, and he does. And I now kind of remember that. It's been 3 years, and
there you go.
That's a lot of bowls ago. And now I do remember a bunch of Edge heads just being like, okay, yeah, cool. Edge's going to come back, have a big, nice final run for all us Gen Xers, and it's going to be fucking sweet.
Yeah.
Well, if those writers would just go on strike so they could lose their jobs, maybe we'd have better writers in position. And Edge would have never been removed from the Judgment Day and would now be about to win the world title from Seth Rollins. And that would be incredible. But instead, the writers never went on strike and still continued to write terrible shit.
Yeah, but also didn't. Yeah, well, and also Edge didn't want to do because of the writers, I guess. He didn't want to do the spiritual stuff, right? Yeah.
But have we seen any spiritual stuff?
No,
not really.
No, not
which
a
makes me
bit.
also think that was just an internet rumor.
That's not a
could
bit.
Could be.
Back to Vince's final creation, though, guys. Barker, what do you think about? Is Vince still in charge? Has this transferred to Triple H?
Well, if we are to believe what is said on the internet, Michael P.S. Hayes is the agent For
Ooh.
every Roman Reigns
Dude,
match.
dude.
Yeah, were you ready for that one? So I want to believe that he's there for all of them. I know for a fact that he was the agent for the WrestleMania, and that's when I read, or I think maybe Stephen P. News, shout out Steve, was the one that told us that he is I think he has a job because of the Bloodline. It is his baby. So as far as we know, we have the most oldest,
the ultimate company man.
And also the oldest, schoolest motherfucker in the locker room. This motherfucker was wrestling in the 70s. So we have someone who has a lot of institutional knowledge about how this shit is supposed to be done. And then we also have Paul Heyman, maybe the first, second, or third greatest mind that's ever been in this business. And he's really just set up for success with all of the wisdom and experience he has around him, obviously. But I do believe this is that final big feather in Vince McMahon's cap. You know what I'm saying? Because I know you can.
Michael P.S. Hayes can work with Paul Heyman probably better than anyone else because he's got more experience working with Paul Heyman than anyone else.
They would
is willing to accept and understand, his insight and help perfect it too. Instead of, that's a great point.
The Bloodline has really changed the way that we look at wrestling. I know that when I'm watching a show that doesn't have the Bloodline on it, you really, really notice that the Bloodline is not on Raw. And
that they're trying to mimic some of those storytelling elements too, right? With the other factions and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And it's not working as well as the Bloodline. So the big question, though, before we get finished speaking about this transformation of Roman Reigns, we must answer the question: is Roman Reigns going to beat Hulk Hogan's reign?
Yes.
Is Roman Reigns going to beat Bruno Sammartino's reign?
No.
Bob Backlund's reign? Where are we going to see this end?
He will beat Hulk Hogan's reign because WWE has a lot of incentive to kind of erase Hulk Hogan, as we said before, or I said earlier,
or at least surpass him legitimately.
Yeah, but I mean, WWE wants to just calm that Hulk Hogan shit down. Now, I know that they'll make 17 figures every month, but
I was just going to say they literally announced 14 figures a couple weeks ago.
I know all that, but Hulk Hogan, little toxic, little problematic, right? Don't want to get into that, but I think it is
keeps lying.
Dude, it is you can bet on it. I would love to find somewhere in Vegas that you could lay odds, and I'm sure that those odds are real steep. He is going to absolutely beat. It's 1,300 and some odd days to beat Hogan. For sure. He can't beat Bruno. He can't beat Bob because those are all 7, 8, 9 year reigns, right? Roman Reigns is going to be in Hollywood making motion pictures, baby, long after any of that would happen.
You keep saying that and it doesn't happen. And
it's going to happen.
I'm coming from. Let me lay my predictions down here on the House of Kayfabe because we've been doing a lot of talk about what we were saying 3 years ago. So what are we going to be saying 3 years from now? Is that where the Bruno reign is and the Backlund reign?
Nah.
Is it another 3 years from now?
We can't do that. In this microwave culture, we can't do that.
Hey, why not? You've got Jimmy. You've got Jay. Sami Zayn could come fucking back, by the way. And you were talking about a babyface Roman. Heel Sammy. Okay. Cody Rhodes hasn't even come back. I was going to say,
we haven't even mentioned Cody Rhodes.
Exactly. We haven't even put Cody Rhodes back in there. Brock Lesnar can come back anytime he wants to. You've got the Paul Heyman thing in there. Guys, that's 2 more years worth of stuff.
And The Rock.
And we haven't even got to the actual payoff. What could end up being, legitimately, could end up being the actual payoff.
Well, The Rock's definitely not going to beat him. The Rock is going to have to come back. Next year
So then what? It goes even longer.
But wait, is next year the 40th?
I'm saying
is next year
down. I'm saying
wait a minute.
Be the longest reigning champ.
Next year is the 40th. Yes.
Okay, so next year's the 40th anniversary. Vince McMahon loves those kind of anniversaries. I mean, everybody does. So I don't think Cody gets it then. I think that we're going to go to Philadelphia, and if we're all standing by our words, we will. At least I will be at WrestleMania next year because I'm only 8 hours away, and I'm already saving up for it. And I know Derek
keeps going down.
Whew, boy. But I think that we see The Rock coming. He's going to lay down for him. He has to get through WrestleMania to beat Hulk Hogan's reign. He's at I don't think he's at 1,100 yet. Hogan's is like 13 and some odd. He's definitely, absolutely 100% going to beat him. He's going to beat him. But look, man, in 3 years, MJF is going to be fucking at the WWE. There's no possible way that this lasts another 3 years. It's not going. He's going to be in Fast and Furious 15 by then, like for sure. He's going to be making motion pictures
for his sake.
He's going to be.
All I'm saying is it's going to break whatever records there are. There's no reason they should come this far and not break every previous record. As long as it's working, as long as you have him on top and nobody else is standing by.
I don't think it makes sense to beat Bruno.
That's impossible. He'll be 50. That's an 8-9 year run. Dude, y'all got to remember, this motherfucker's close to 40. Like, you know what I mean?
It's that long, is it?
It is.
It's that long. No,
Bruno has an 8. No, he has an
8
year.
7.
He has a 6 and 7, and he has an 8 or a 9. This guy was the champ for most of the 70s. Those days are over. And dude, look, thus Smarks, we've been very, very patient, but we still live in a microwave fucking culture where anything past a 15-second TikTok video, we lose attention span.
And so let's thank all our
y'all are being
for watching
silly
this far.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
By the way, thanks you guys for.
Yeah, I'll have to cut this up into shorts to get anyone to fucking watch it. That's not possible. He's going to beat the Hulk Hogan 1300 days. That's a done fucking deal, which means Cody does not win at WrestleMania. But Cody, man, I know this is where we're at. Cody's going to win. Brock Lesnar's going to beat the complete, absolute dog shit out of him on. Is it Saturday? Is SummerSlam Saturday? Saturday, yeah. Oh man, this is going to be like a snuff film. It's going to be brutal, and then Cody's going to win. You know what I mean? And Cody's going to keep building, and then I don't know. I think Cody is handcuffed. I think 6 months ago, especially after WrestleMania, we just said, "Oh, obviously Cody Rhodes is going to be the one that unmasks him."
We all thought it was obvious.
But look, now we have another title. Seth has a title. You know what I mean?
I think that world title was basically put together to give Cody something to win.
Or Seth to win too, because Seth is the number 2 man. He's the number 2 man. Seth is the number 2 man.
But Seth has went down that road before. He's wore the titles before. It doesn't matter to him. I mean, right before this, he was feuding for the U.S. title. It doesn't matter with Seth. It matters for Cody, and it matters for the WWE that Cody not go over Roman.
Most of these guys, don't forget, are at least only 2 degrees removed from a Baron Corbin feud. So,
anyway,
sorry to go there.
Remember when Baron Corbin handcuffed Roman Reigns and fed him dog food because he was the
not
big
only
dog?
do I remember it, I have the trading card that they have. I wish I had it handy. Damn, I wish I had it handy because it's one of the notoriously worst trading cards of all time is the Baron Corbin dog food.
How does he have a job? How the fuck does Baron?
Listen, he has completely reinvented himself. Actually, not really reinvented himself, but found his previous gimmick in NXT, and I think that he's doing better right now.
It's the best thing for him if you're going to keep him on TV. Yeah.
So
we better wrap this up. Where are we going? We better not go to book NXT.
Well, I was going to give you my prediction. I believe that he is going to beat Hogan. I'm with Barker saying that he will not beat Bob Backlund or Bruno Sammartino. I think that you don't need to beat those guys.
I'm going to be in a retirement home, and he's going to still have the Universal and WWE titles. Guys. Sorry.
Well, I'm just saying you got Bruno and Bob. Neither one of them were caught saying the N-word on a video, and neither one of them had a sex tape. So I think that they're pretty safe in their positions, and Roman coming in at number 3 will be good. I do not believe he will go to the Bob Backlund Bruno level. However, when it comes to motion pictures, all we have to do is find a Hollywood studio that understands that Roman Reigns is the perfect little brother to Jason Momoa, and we will see something good happen for him in the motion picture world.
I just looked it up. Bruno Sammartino's longest reign was 2,837 days for a grand total of almost 8 years between 63 and 71. It is 2023. I assure you that when my last child is graduating college, that he is not going to be the champion.
And And when you were
I
doing
just
that research,
predicted it.
there wasn't any of those days that included a sex tape.
No.
So
No.
he's pretty secure.
You're
at
right.
number
There are
one.
reasons to put Roman in the top 3 of all time.
For sure.
In the top 3, but you don't have to knock off Bob Backlund and Bruno to get
It was
there.
a different time.
It was a different time, just like right now is a different time. 3 years removed from when we originally started this conversation.
Congratulations, guys.
Yeah, and now we are at a completely different level with Roman Reigns. Make sure that you click like to this video. Make sure you subscribe to the page. Make sure you hit the little bell so you get the notifications to know whenever we decide to get on here and run our mouths. You can be a part of it and listen, and join us in the comment section. We will be back with more good stuff right here on the House of Kayfabe.
Even the Ultimate Warrior is acknowledging.